Hi there, I'm Richard Turl. I'm one of the leaders at Mickfield Evangelical Church, and we're looking at 3 reasons why we believe in Jesus. In the previous video, which you can see, the Monty Python reason, we said that we ought to take a look at Jesus because his positive impact on this country is staggering. Historian Tom Holland has said that we swim in Christian waters. The impact of Jesus on our culture has been colossal. But today we've got our second reason, and more briefly, the C.S Lewis Reason. C.S Lewis was a great author, a great thinker, scholar, and broadcaster, particularly on the BBC during World War II. He held positions at Oxford University and Cambridge University. He's perhaps best known for the Narnia series. As a young child, the neighbour next door was having a bit of a clear out, and he came around and he said, would you be interested in having these? And he gave me this very box set of the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and all of those. They've been turned into great films, and as I read those books, even as a child, I was aware that I was being taken entering into a world that was far away and yet oddly familiar at the same time. C.S. Lewis wrote many books and articles and essays. He wrote a great book, Mere Christianity, which is a good one for those who perhaps are exploring the Christian faith. One of the helpful things about C.S. Lewis is that he moved from a position of atheism to theism, and then to Christian belief. But this is what C.S. Lewis said, and this is our focus. He said this: I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. Do you see what he's saying? He believed in Christianity. He could see that there was light, there was truth there. But not just that. He believed in it because the light and the truth of it seemed to shine on everything else and make sense of many other things. And that's my personal experience. The Christian faith makes sense of the world that we live in. These glasses, I wear them all the time so that I can see. They bring things into focus. They enabled me to see clearly. And that's what I believe about the Christian faith. It's like a great lens that enables me to see the world in which I live more clearly. In this current crisis, I've spoken to many local people, and many people have said that the crisis has brought out the very best in people. Those who are honest will say that it's also brought out the very worst in people. Well, the Christian worldview makes sense of those two realities. How can those two things happen in our lives side by side? I don't know if that's your experience. Even your best of days can be tainted. Often your best days are followed by your worst days. Often we experience goodness and sadness and badness alongside each other. The amazingly good and yet the upsettingly disappointing situations in our lives. The Bible accounts for both of these things together. It has an explanation for why that is. The Bible talks about, for example, the wonderful gift of sex and how devastating is the abuse of that gift. The Bible understands the satisfaction of a decent day's work done, but also the toil and trouble and setbacks and stresses and strains of working life. The Bible understands the usefulness of money, but also how there is that potentially devastating enslavement that can come with money. Western history and literature is full of these twin realities, the amazing things that people can do and the awful things that we've done. And the Christian faith manages to kind of hold these two things together. I studied A-level sociology. You don't need to understand sociology to understand this. As I studied it, there were positive theories about the world. You know, this is the kind of good ideal that kind of is or ought to be. And then there were negative theories like Marxism and feminism that spoke often of the sad realities of the world that we live in. But I found no theory, no philosophy or religion or worldview that could hold these two things together and give an account for them. But the Christian faith has both a blueprint for how the world ought to work and an amazing, profound recognition of the brokenness of the world that we live in. And the Bible does a lot of that work, even within the first 2 or 3 pages. Now, there are many other reasons why I would say that the Christian faith makes sense of the world that we live in. Too many to talk about here. The Bible talked long ago about how pride often comes before a fall, and how laughter is good for us like medicine. G.K. Chesterton talked about these two great machines, the world and the Christian tradition, and how they just didn't seem to fit together in his understanding. But then he says, but seeing how 2 parts came together, then one after another, other parts fitted and fell in. And then he says, I could hear bolt after bolt over all the machinery falling into its place with a kind of click of relief. Later on, he talks about the idea of a bone being put back into its socket. You know, the Christian view of life, the biblical view of life that we take from Jesus, it's like a great lens. It makes sense of the complex world that we live in. It fits, it clicks. And that's because it provides a compelling and coherent account of why the world is the way that it is. Have you looked at it? Have you considered Christianity? Have you compared it with other religions and worldviews and philosophies and looked at how they attempt to make sense of the world that we live in? Well, look out for our next and final video, one more reason why we believe in Jesus.